Hello everybody and welcome to OmniPoke, a channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I'm here with another Sun and Moon 5 Ultra Prism deck analysis for you guys. This time I'm going to be taking a look at Magnezone and various attackers that were pairing with Magnezone. This deck seems to be one of the strongest coming out of this new set, so we wanted to give you guys our take on what we think could be a really strong archetype. Starting us off, we have two of the new Dusk main Necrozma-GX. This thing is a huge beat stick, it just takes out so many Pokemon. 190 HP, weakness to fire, resistant to psychic, and 3 retreat cost. First attack for 3 colourless is a flat 60 damage, not too bad, but not great. However, the second attack for 3 metal energy and 1 colourless does 220 base damage, and then you then have to discard 3 metal attached to Duskmane Necrozma. But 220 damage is huge. With a choice band, it's knocking out pretty much everything in the format. There's not much that can survive it. And then the GX attack for 3 metal energy does 250 damage, but can only be used if you're behind on prizes. So yeah, this is a really strong card. It just lets you pretty much knock out whatever's in front of you. This is going to be the main attacker of the deck, and we're going to want to be powering this guy up each and every turn to just do this 220 or 250 damage in order to knock out whatever our opponent is playing. Next up we have 2 Dialga-GX. This is another fantastic card. One of the strongest cards I think we've ever had printed, without a doubt the strongest GX attack we've ever had printed, I think. 180 HP Dragon type, weak to Fairy, and also 3 retreat cost. The first attack for 1 metal energy lets you draw cards from your deck up until you have 6 cards in hand. So this is a really good attack on the first turn. You'll see when we look at the supporters, there's not too many supporters in the deck because we really like using Dialga as one of our main Pokemon to just help us set up. Second attack for a metal and a DCE is Shred for 80 damage, and obviously Shred goes through all effects of on the opposing Pokemons, things like abilities that would stop this doing damage, things like attacks that have made the Pokemon immune. This goes through all of them. So it's nice to have this style of attack in the deck, even though there's not too many things Shred hits right now. It's always useful to have this style of attack. And finally, the GX attack, Timeless GX, does 150 damage for 3 metal and 2 colourless energy, and states that at the end of your turn you may take another turn. This is so good. This is game breaking. We've never really seen an effect quite like this before. There's been some kind of time or turn based effects before, but this is the first time we've ever just been allowed to take another turn. So yeah, this is such a hugely strong attack. You can use it mid game if you're falling behind on the board and you need to have an extra turn just to build your board. You can use it if your opponent only has 2 attackers left. You can Timeless GX into hopefully Duskmane Necrozma and win that way because your opponent has they have no opportunity to bench any more Pokemon. You can use it to set up the win next turn because your opponent doesn't have a chance to N you because you've just taken another turn. They can't N you out of game, which is another really strong thing. And you can also, in general, just take 4 prizes with it. You can use Timeless GX on a Lele with a choice band here. Does 180 damage, knocks out a Lele. They then promote another GX Pokemon. You can then use Duskmane Necrozma the turn after, and you can take 4 prizes. So essentially you just have to find a way of taking another 2 prizes at some point in the game, and you've won the game. So yeah, Dialga-GX is such a strong attacker, and I think possibly has the strongest GX attack we've seen so far. We have 1 Solgaleo Prism star. This shows off the new Prism star mechanic. You may only have 1 Prism star card of the same name in your deck. You can have as many Prism star cards in your deck as you want. You can just only have 1 of each name. So we're only allowed 1 Solgaleo Prism star, but we could also have a Cyrus Prism star or a Lunala Prism star, that kind of thing. And then when Prism star cards would normally be sent to the discard, they're sent to the Lost Zone instead, so there's no way to recover this guy. 160 HP, non-EX. So having a non-EX attacker is really cool. It means that we're not too worried, or we have the opportunity to create 7 prize games, which is really nice. His first attack, Full Metal Star, I believe it's called, or something like that. For 1 metal energy, lets you attach a metal energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon for each of your opponent's Pokemon. So if they have a full board of 6 Pokemon, you can attach 6 energy from the discard pile on your board in whatever way you like. This is a really good answer to Garbodor. If our opponent gets a Garbodor up, obviously we're using the Magnezone engine. If our opponent gets a Garbodor up with Garbotoxin, we can then use this Solgaleo to help fill our board of energy and not have to worry about having our Magnezone online anymore. This is also a really good way to reload mid-game. You can go kind of aggressive with the attacks early game, then send this guy in, reload to hopefully try and take your final 2 or 3 prizes later on in the game, which is really, really nice. And then his other attack for 4 metal energy does 160 damage, and Solgaleo Prism can't attack next turn. So it's also nice having a pretty strong non-EX attacker as well. As I say, we can flip the prize trade into a 7 prize game, and also with a choice band this does knock out a Lele, so we can uptrade with this guy pretty well as well. Onto the Magnezone line, we're running a 3-1-3 line of the new Magnezone from Ultra Prism. We're using the old Magnemite from Breakthrough, the Sparkling Induction one. If you have, the ability states that if you have another, or your retreat cost is reduced for on Magnemite for every other Magnemite on your bench. So essentially, if you can get 1 Magnemite onto the bench whilst you've got one in the active, these guys have free retreat, which is really what we're looking for, because we want to get to the Dialga. We want to get Dialga in the active so we can start drawing cards with his first attack in the early game. And it's also nice to have an early game free retreater as well, just so we can move around, and we always have options later on, or to be able to move into what we want. The Magneton, sorry, isn't too influential. We're running a new one because it's got 90 HP and can attack for 1 energy. It's not too, they're all kind of similar, but this one can attack for metal energy as we're not running lightning energy. And finally, obviously, we're running the new Magnezone with the Deluge style ability, letting you attach as many metal energy on your turn as you like. His attack is worth noting as well. For 3 metal and 1 colourless, does 130 damage, and Magnezone can't attack next turn. This is a pretty useful attack to have, just because it's another attack that actually one-shots a Guardy, so this deck really doesn't have an issue with Guardy anyway, but considering Magnezone can even attack and one-shot a Guardy, is really, really nice. So yeah, that's our Magnezone line. 3-1-3 is kind of a little bit sort of thin, but we have lots of draw cards, and as soon as you have 1 Magnezone online, you can kind of get going, and we have, like I say, we have this backup energy sort of, we have this backup approach of attaching energy through Solgaleo Prism Star anyway. Finally, we have a 2-2 Octillery line, well, with the layers as well, but as for the other Pokemon, we have a 2-2 Octillery line, just because we want to be able to carry on drawing into our metal energy to keep attaching them. Octillery is such a fantastic card right now. It's really, really strong to be able to not spend your support for the turn but still be able to draw cards. There's a lot of insta-play cards in this deck, so we're often drawing quite a few cards. And also it's really, really good for the sort of Timeless GX combo, because you want to be going for Timeless GX with a Guzma to take out a Lele, then often you're going to need a second Guzma to be able to take another 2 prizes. This means that we can still use Guzmas, but still have our hand refresh and make sure we can hit these energy to be able to pull off this combo. So we're not relying on just using Guzma and not really having any draw engine at all. So yeah, Octillery is a really, really nice complement to the deck, considering there's so many insta-play cards. And then of course, finally, there are indeed 2 Lele, pretty standard. Energy Drive is actually a really, really good attack in this deck, because we can actually stack up a Lele pretty quickly with Magnezone. But yeah, just being able to wonder tag for your Brigette turn 1 for one of the Guzmas if you need it, it's just really, really strong. Onto the supporters themselves, we've got 3 Professor Sycamore. As you'll see, the supporter count is pretty sort of tight. It's pretty simple. There's nothing too fancy with it. That's because, like I say, we want to be getting our Octillery out. We just want to keep things simple. This is a stage 2 deck after all, so we want to just keep things as simple as possible. Some power draw with Sycamore is always good, just to be able to get into these combo pieces. We're not running Skylers. We want to just power draw and cycle through. You'll see in combination with one of the cards later on, we don't mind discarding cards too much anyway. So yeah, Sycamore's really, really good in the early turns, just to find this Magnezone and get it online. We're also running 3N. We're not running any Cynthia, just because this deck is quite aggressive. So you want to be Guzmaing a lot, so we don't want N as well as Sycamore. However, N is also really, really good in the early turns for, again, being able to find these combo pieces. So yeah, we're still running 3N. It's still such a really strong card, and it can also, obviously, N our opponent out of game as well, things like that. We always want to have access to N. 3 Guzma, as I said earlier on, this combo is a really, really big deal, so we want to have access to Guzma as and when we need it. But also in the early turns, just being able to take out whatever we want with Duskmane Necrozma, knowing that we can take out whatever we want. Having access to Guzma means that we can really punish our opponents for slow starts and things like that. And then finally, of course, 2 Brigette, pretty standard in most Stage 2 decks right now. but the fact it gets the GX as well is just insane. You're often going to Lele for like a Remoraid, a Magnemite, and then whichever GX you don't have at the moment to be able to start setting up. But yeah, Brigette is just such a fantastic card right now. On to items, 4 Ultra Ball, again pretty standard. Turn 1 Lele is often really good, so having an extra 4 outs to that is really nice. Plus it's a combo piece to be able to find a Magnezone if we do indeed have one of our rare candies already. Of course we're running 4 rare candies. It's a stage 2 deck. We want to have access to turn 2 Magnezone as often as possible, so we're going to increase our chances of doing that by running 4 rare candies as well. 2 Professor's Letter. The whole deck relies on finding these metal energy and setting up these really strong attackers, so being able to find 2 energy in one card is really nice. It also helps in combination with Mount Coronet, a card I'll talk about in a minute, to be able to attach 4 energy for your turn before even using a supporter. These guys have big attack costs. The Timeless GX is 5 energy, and I can't remember what the attack's called, but Dust Necrozma requires 4 energy. So these guys have big attack costs, so they are going to need access to a lot of energy, and that's why we've got 2 letters in here, as well as the Mount Coronet count that we're playing. 2 Field Blower. There is a lot of abilities in this deck. We want to be able to stop our opponent from setting up Garbotoxin as often as possible, and when they do have access to Garbotoxin, we want to be able to Field Blower away so we can have access to our Deluge style ability again. Also with Abyssal Hand, we always want to have access to Abyssal Hand. It's a really strong ability, and therefore we want to be able to Field Blower away things like Float Stones on Garbodors and stuff. But also it's just a really strong card right now. Another card that kind of hurts this deck is Parallel City, because we're always going to want Octillery and Magnezone out, which means we're probably only going to have space for 1 or 2 more Pokemon. And because of that, it's kind of awkward if our opponent parallels us. So therefore, as well as the stadiums we're playing, it's nice to have Field Blowers as well, just to make sure we can never be paralleled out of the game. We've got 1 Super Rod, like I said earlier on. We don't mind Sycamoring early because we do have recovery. We've got the Mount Coronet, so this Super Rod is often going to find us Pokemon. But that being said, sometimes you will need to shuffle in a few more energy just to guarantee you can draw into it in the next couple of turns, in combination with things like Professor Letter and Sycamore and stuff like that. So yeah, all round just a really good recovery card. 3 Choice Band. As I've been saying with the numbers, with Timeless GX you want to have a Choice Band because that's 180, that means it's knocking out a Lele, so you're taking 2 prizes and getting to draw another card, carry on your turn. So being able to take these 2 prizes on Timeless GX is often more important than actually getting the second knockout. So yeah, having 3 Choice Band just means that we can play them sort of quite freely. We know we're always going to, hopefully always going to have one ready for when we do want to pull off this Timeless GX combo. But just in general, with a Choice Band, Dusk Necrozma is also knocking out pretty much everything in the format as well. So yeah, it's just really strong to guarantee a knockout pretty much whatever we see, whatever our opponent's playing. 2 Floatstone is another really important inclusion. The retreat costs on these guys are quite big. Obviously we do have the recovery of Mount Coronet, which I'll go over in a second, but still we don't always want to be spending our energy in order to retreat. We want to be able to attach it and attack with it, so we don't always want our energy to be sort of thrown away. Things like Magnezone and Octillery are very often not going to have energy on them, so we want to have access to retreating them. We don't want our opponent to be able to Guzma them up and just stall us out of game. Finally, as I've mentioned, we're playing 3 Mount Coronet. This is a new stadium card that lets you put 2 metal energy from your discard pile into your hand once per turn. This is really good for reloading. Like I say, Dusk Necrozma discards energy, so this is really good synergy with him. But yeah, just being able to, like I say, having the option to retreat and then attach the energy back on, having the option to sort of quite freely play your energy, knowing that you're going to have an extra 2 from Mount Coronet. It's really nice just having access to lots of energy recycle cards. That's why we're only playing 1 Super Rod and no more recovery, just because this is our recovery as well. Then finally, onto the energy, we are indeed playing 10 metal energy. It seems kind of low, but because we get recovery, it's a lot more actually in game. So whilst it doesn't seem like it's a lot of energy for a deck that wants to be attaching a lot of energy, because we have so much good recovery through Mount Coronet and Solgaleo Prism, it's really not an issue that we're only running 10. So yeah, I don't think there's too many cards that we haven't included that you could include. Things like Skylers are often seen in these stage 2 decks. We did try Skylar,
but it was a little bit slow. We often wanted to draw from things like Sycamore. So yeah, Skylo was one that we personally didn't like, but I can understand it being in here. But other than that, I think the deck is pretty solid. Another good attacker is Genesect-GX. And that's one I want to try out a little bit more. I haven't been too happy with it so far, but yeah, Genesect-GX could be another really, really good inclusion, just for having sort of a midway attack. Obviously, Dusk-Mane Necrozma knocks out anything, but it's a lot of energy cost, whereas we need kind of a good attacker for non-EX matchups, and I think Genesect-GX is probably one of the better ones. But yeah, I haven't tested that fully yet. I want to try that a little bit more this weekend. So yeah, I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, other than that, if there's anything you perhaps would disagree with or would like to change about the list, let us know down in the comments. Get discussing with how you've built Magnezone. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from OmniPoke, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video.